So, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Stanley Kipsang, and I want to make a presentation today on performance metrics redefined beyond annual reviews. So, in this presentation, I want us to look at how performance metrics can be redefined to move away from the traditional annual reviews to an ongoing review process where feedback is provided almost instantly on an ongoing basis. And the reason for this is that we want to have a situation where people or employees can be able to, get feedback as immediate as possible, and they can be able to take the necessary, corrective action in the event that there are issues that are pinpointed or that come out from the evaluation, as opposed to waiting for the end of the year to do the reviews and give feedback. So this is a process that ensures that an ongoing feedback is provided so that employees can be able to take the necessary corrective action as immediate as possible. So in this presentation, I want us to look at the first aspect is how annual reviews has been over the years creating, a baseline for disengagement. And you find that there's some research that have been done by Gallup, uh, and this research was able to identify that 14% of workers no longer find, annual reviews as motivating as they used to. You know, you find that 17% of employees who are who quit, who quit directly due to insufficient feedback. So 70% of employees quit because they are not able to get sufficient feedback. Now, okay, so so you find that some of the reasons why uh, workers no longer find, the annual reviews as motivating as they are, because some of the reviews or these reviews are normally infrequent. When it's done at the end of the year, you rarely get uh, up-to-date information in terms of how well you're doing. Another aspect is it's retrospective. It means that you are given information on issue that happened previously. You're not being told on what is happening currently. It's bureaucratic because these are some of this information, and emanates from the supervisors, the bosses, and rarely, do you find an environment where you can have a one-on-one engagement in terms of how best you can be able to improve on your work. And it's static. It does not take care of the needs of the business. Business changes every time. And continuous reviews provide an opportunity where you can be able to, address the business needs as they keep on changing. The other aspect is on the paradigm shift in terms of now moving away from the static assessment to a fluid development process. Now, when you look at the traditional annual review and continuous reviews, you will find there's a whole lot of difference in terms of how they are being executed. One, when you look at the timing aspect, the traditional annual reviews are done at the end of the year, and normally because it's a one-off affair, it is rigid in terms of evaluation and feedback. But when you look at the continuous review process, it's normally provides information in real time, and it's flexible. The focus you know, is retrospective. When you look at the traditional annual reviews, it's solely focusing on the past performance. You cannot get information on what is happening currently when you compare it to the continuous management or performance management process, where you get immediate, feedback, and you can be able to adjust for any changes that needs to be provided regarding your improvement. The other one is it's the traditional, the traditional uh, performance management process is static, not really static, it's bureaucratic because it emanates from the top leadership and cascades down to employees. So there's no two-way communication. It only comes down as instructions for you to be able to implement. But some of these issues of performance really requires some discussions. When you understand how these employees are performing, then you can be able now to help them grow, and address the issues or the problems that they are facing in the course of their work. It is static in terms of implementation. It doesn't take care of the changing needs of the business, as opposed to continuous evaluation, where it's highly adaptive and you can always, adjust to the changes that are happening within the business, within the market, and so on. So you can look at traditional annual reviews versus the continuous, review process. There's so much difference. And you find that organizations now need to adapt to a continuous process where they can continuously give feedback and they are able to address the problems or issues that are coming up on an ongoing process, on an ongoing basis, so that you don't file problems and then address them at the end of the year. You need to address them on a continuous basis so that anything that happens needs to be addressed at that particular point, so that people can now be able to know what they need to do, what needs to be done for them to become better on a day-to-day basis. So it is important to see how best you can, improve the performance of your staff by integrating a continuous, process of managing performance. Now, when you look at the first pillar, it's about continuous feedback, which basically requires a two-way nexus. It's a two-way communication, where you have the manager on one side and have the employee on the other side, and what is expected of them in terms of the shared goals. So we have regular check-ins in terms of, structured focus, where you have monthly or quarterly, reviews, where feedback is provided, or almost on a monthly basis. There's an aspect of real-time recognition. When there are problems, when there are issues that have been identified in the wake of evaluation, then there is the immediate, corrective action that is taken to address the issues that have been identified. Then there is prioritization of performance development plans, whereby now you can be able now to come up with a structured plan to improve performance by building on the capacities of these particular employees. So you're able to prioritize growth by evaluating how best these people or the employees are meeting the expectations or the expected needs of the company, and what are some of the gaps that have been identified, and what can be done to improve on gaps and address, and ensure that there's continuous progress in terms of their performance. Now, we have something called SBI model, where we are looking at situation, behavior, and impact. What is important here is that when we look at the situation, normally the situation is anchored on feedback, and this is provided in a specific time and a specific place. The expectation here is that once the feedback is provided, then there must be some behavioral change from this particular employee. So what is expected of this employee to address, or what needs to be done, or what that this particular employee needs to do to address what has been identified from the feedback? So you need to describe specific actions that is supposed to be taken by the employee. Then that leads to impact. What are the results of the behavioral change? The company improves in terms of performance. It improves in terms of goal accomplishment, and so on. So that must be clearly, articulated, so that employees must be able to understand this is the feedback that is provided, this is the behavior that is expected to change, and this is the impact that will be realized from the change in behavior. So we are saying that managers must be able to keep brief records of these agreements, transforming these qualitative, conversations into trackable development data. So it's always good to keep these records and ensure that you can continuously track progress of these particular employees and see how well they're improving and how and how they are achieving the intended expectations of the company as they continuously work. Now we have the second pillar where we are talking about the agile goals, the adaptations to, which is basically about adaptation to business growth. So we have the long-term objectives. which is basically broad. What does the company, want to achieve? What does the organization want to achieve in the long term? Then we have the quarterly rolling plans. What are these, aspirations in terms of objectives, in terms of key results, and so on. Then we have the monthly real-time adjustments. What needs to be changed? So as you give feedback, what is the expectations that what needs to be changed from those feedback? So here we are looking at three key aspects. One is adaptability. Goals adjust continuously with changing conditions. So you must be able to ensure that the goals are adaptable to the expectations, of the organization. Then there's the aspect of responsiveness. How quickly can you adjust, you know, to the changes? Then there is better measurements. How do you track, incremental tracking, which provides now immediate and clear insights. So you are looking at the adaptability, the responsiveness of the employees, and improvement, so that you can see how you are growing in terms of performance, whether it's within the organization as a whole or employees at an individual level. And you can progressively track how they're improving. Now we have the third pillar where we're talking about uh, personalized, personalized concepts, where you're looking at, the traditional training programs against personal development plans. So how do you compare the traditional training programs against personal development plans? So here you are looking at it from the point of training programs are basically tailored to, improve the needs, improve the skills, So they're designed for broad audience needs. But when you look at personal development plans, which normally comes out of the continuous, evaluation process, it is tailored towards building on individual strengths and goals. When you look at the traditional training programs, it is specific skills or knowledge for groups. So you're building on specific skills. But when you come up with a personal development plan, then you are looking at the future. What are some of the opportunities? What are some of the ways you can build on the capacities of these employees so that they can be able now to meet their future needs in terms of career growth and progression? Then you have fixed curriculum sets, which basically, identifies in a structured framework what people are supposed to be trained. So at the end of the year, people are trained based on the needs that have been identified through the annual reviews. But then when you have a personal development plan, which is normally provided on a continuous basis, it's adjustable content and pace as goals evolve. So as you grow, then the plan is adjusted basing it on how you're progressing. It is not static as provided by curriculum. This one changes. Curriculum is static. It's provided. It's developed to take care of the training, but does not evolve basing it on the needs. But performance development plans keeps changing as needs for growth change. Then we have structured sessions led by instructors. When you compare to personal development plan, a personal development plan is self-directed, and we have a mentor or supervisor who guides the employee in terms of improving on their performance. Then, lastly, we have program completion and standardized test scores. Then, this one there's an aspect of evaluation, and you are evaluated basically on a score. But now, when you talk about personal performance development plan, it's evaluated based on goal achievement. How you've advanced. It's about continuous improvement. There are no scores provided. But are you better off than before? How well have you progressed when you compare to the last evaluation? So we're saying that organizations that are implementing PDPs experience reduced turnover and build trackable records for targeted succession plan. So when we look at the technological aspects, which are very important when it comes to performance evaluation, we have the AI and specialized platforms, which basically, allow for continuous feedback. So we have the AI-powered analytics, then we have the continuous feedback platforms. So when you look at the AI-powered analytics provides predictive, insights in terms of what are the expectations in the future regarding the needs of these particular employees. So The AI powered analytics improves assessment accuracy by almost 30% because it's based on data. When you look at the continuous feedback platforms, it's real-time dashboards which are normally dedicated on ongoing management conversation. So this one is about continuous feedback. So it's not evaluated based on inputs from AI, but you're looking at how you're improving based on previous evaluations. You were able to integrate existing systems that are available in the organization. And basically, when we talk about continuous feedback platforms, it transforms retrospective static exercise into daily living operational metrics. So you're moving away from static, uh, evaluations that are yearly based to almost monthly or even maybe daily, evaluation that takes care on continuous growth from previous evaluations. So you look at what you did, or how well you did before. Feedback is provided. Then, if there's need for improvement, then discussions can be provided, can be made, or can be done between you and the supervisor, and you can be able now to adjust accordingly. So we have the continuous performance return on investment dashboard. So here, we want to see how continuous performance evaluation, benefits the organization. So we have a 15%. This is based on McKinsey, research. 15% growth in terms of employee output when you look at the immediate, transition from the annual appraisals to a continuous feedback. So we are seeing improvement, a 15% improvement in terms of performance. We also see a 30%, improvement in terms of, and this is by Adobe Check in case study. So industry jumps by 20% with leading tech platforms pushing engagement, by 30%. Employees become more engaged, when you have a continuous evaluation process. Then there's a reduction in turnover by 50%. You cut in turnover among young employees who have just been employed by 50%. So you're reducing turnover when you provide continuous performance evaluation. And this is as per research done by Deloitte. So how do you navigate the transition friction? We will always face resistance to change. People always resist change. But then how do you address this? Involve staff immediately to reduce this. People will always own up the process when you involve them. So always involve them, especially at the early stage of development. Integration difficulties, how do you address it? Pilot programs, test softwares, before you roll them out fully, so that you understand their applicability, the results that come out by the usage from a small set of employees. Training gaps, build a comprehensive skill, training or skill capacity building, whereby you can instruct managers to intimately provide structured feedback, to employees. So ensure that people are trained on how to give feedback. Employees or let's say the managers or supervisors needs to be trained on how to give constructive feedback. Then when there is inconsistent application, this means that leadership must come in and provide commitment and ensure that people own up this process. So leadership modeling in terms of involvement of people in decision making, participating in continuous development programs whereby they can be able now to improve on their skills. Execution roadmap across organization. We have the HR leaders, we have managers, we have employees. All of them have different responsibilities when it comes to execution. HR leaders participate, in system building, ensure that the systems that are put into place are friendly to employees. They are able to, build up, provide feedback in real time, and help or guide in, building up the skills or improving employees' performance. The managers also have a role to play. They need to deploy the SBI framework, situation, behavior, and impact. Actively solicit upward feedback, ensure that people get feedback on the right time, and they're able to address information or issues that have been identified through feedback. Then employees on the other side, they also have a role to play. They must be able to look at the feedback, understand what is expected of them, and be able to act towards improving by performance. So we have a continuous performance ecosystem. So this performance ecosystem has a foundational framework where we have the AI and platform integration, the system. So we have the AI and the system, and we find that we are moving, there's a fundamental shift towards human-centered, data-driven talent architecture. So when we talk about AI and platform integration, we are looking at goals. The goals must be agile enough to help or to guide people in terms of implementation. Provide feedback. Continuous feedback is key so that people or employees can be able to understand how well they are doing against the set standards. Then we have personal development plans. So how then do they improve? What are some of the things that they need to do to improve on the issues that have been identified from the continuous feedback or evaluation process? So the ultimate output of agile goals, continuous feedback, and personal development is improvement in terms of retention, improvement in terms of employee engagement, and also improvement in terms of performance. In conclusion, we can say that building the adaptive workforce is key. And we find that as the workplace accelerates, performance management must also evolve beyond this perspective. So we must be able to take advantage of technology systems that will now help us improve in terms of how we evaluate performance, how we give feedback, and how we allow employees or how we get employees to grow and improve performance. So we are saying that organizations must abandon the annual review today so that they can be able now to ensure that we have employees who are resilient, who are agile, and that is important when it comes to sustaining your performance, sustaining your growth, and that will, will lead to massive long-term returns, which is key for any organization. So it's always good to look at the bigger picture, see how best you can be able to integrate technology, give feedback, and ensure that employees continuously improve their performance. Thank you so much for the time, and have a good day.